Welcome back to Beers Up Sports Talk, episode 13. Yes, episode 13. If you missed episode 12, it means you didn't watch us live, which is bullshit. But I'm not going to hold it against you.
Where were you?
I don't want to talk. I'm not ready for it. Episode 13. We've been off for a week. It was our birthday. We needed to celebrate. We needed to rehab. We needed to get our lives together. But we're here, and sports are here. Almost.
Guess who's
back? Soccer's back. We're not going to talk about that yet, but soccer's back.
You know what? I look forward to talking about it, even though, I'm not the biggest soccer guy. I actually look forward to talking about it a little bit, and maybe I'll even pick a team to follow.
There you go. I actually watched a little bit of a game in an empty stadium. It was weird, but it was live sports, and it was amazing.
Awesome.
But we've got Major League Baseball talking about coming back. We've got NBA talking about coming back. NFL is moving forward. NHL doesn't know what they're doing, but that's not surprising because Gary Bettman.
I don't care because if they don't start the season out and they just end it, Bruins are the Stanley Cup champions. So.
In doing the research for this show, I was like, all right, like MLB, I know everything I need to know. NBA, let me see what's going on with NHL. And it was like, nothing's happening.
Yeah, no, they're doing nothing.
And from what I've heard is that they are so dependent on ticket sales that to do the games without the fans almost doesn't make sense. So I get it. They're in a tough spot. All these other sports have so much money in sponsorships and all of these things that it's not as big of a hit, but that's kind of where they're at.
Well, I also feel like NHL is probably their players seem like they're a little bit more worldwide than
that's
the
true.
Other sports. So they're coming from different areas. So it's going to be harder to really bring people back if they've gone overseas to go home during this.
Right. The last thing I heard is that there's nothing yet, but the plan is when they bring the players back that they'll do kind of like 4 hubs around the country, and that's what they'll do. Hopefully it happens soon because their season is almost over. That means NHL playoffs are on the horizon, and there's nothing better than the Stanley Cup playoffs. That's just fact.
Oh, it's awesome.
Debo, what are you drinking tonight?
Oh, I got Nora from Drunken. It's a double IPA. Fantastic. Got a little unicorn.
Ooh, fancy.
Little rainbow.
Right.
Fancy.
All right. And I am drinking Treehouse tonight. Doppelganger. Double IPA. I haven't had Treehouse in a while. Those beers are really good.
I don't see a glass. There she is.
Listen, protecting myself and my family step by step. All right, listen up. MLB back soon. New rule, potentially, universal DH. That means NL, AL, everybody's got a DH. Initial thoughts, what do you think?
I think it makes sense to do in the long run. I think the fact that they want to do it this year is kind of BS because I think it puts the National League at a little bit of a disadvantage because they didn't plan their rosters for that. I mean, some people there are free agents out there that would just have been good DHs to sign, and NHL's not going to do National League is not going to do that. They're going to go after what they need. And I do like when there's no DH sometimes because the strategy behind it, but let's be honest. It's almost an automatic out. Like, let's stop the bullshit and let's get pitchers out of the ninth spot and put a DH in there, and let's really get the runs popping in the National League.
I couldn't agree more. I think this is a rule that was probably going to happen sooner rather than later. I think because of COVID-19, it's an easy decision to make this year. You get more batters, you get pitchers not having to do at bats. You don't, one less thing for them to get injured or have something happen to them because you're going to need pitchers to stay healthy throughout the season because there's going to be a lot asked of them. And they're probably going to be not as prepared as they would with the normal spring training. There is no reason why this shouldn't already be a rule.
Oh, I agree.
There shouldn't be hitting. I get there's a bunch of purists and old timers and people that are going to be like, this is sacrilegious. This shouldn't happen. Please stop the bullshit. There's having an extra offensive player that can actually hit the ball is a good thing for baseball. Offense is a good thing for baseball. Pitchers are fantastic. Good pitchers are great to watch, but there's nothing better than watching a good offense hit. And yeah, to what you said, there is a little bit of a disadvantage for the NL. But from what I'm what I'm hearing, they're going to have a little bit expanded rosters,
which makes sense.
So that's going to allow an NL team to maybe bring in a veteran, maybe bring up an extra guy, and really do some cool things with their lineup. So I think it also is going to take some defensive players that they had to put out there that probably stunk, and relegate them to DH.
No, I think that's fair. I think that you'll also see some veterans get a second shot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is an extreme, but like a Manny Ramirez. Obviously, that's not going to happen. But someone who's, if we talked about Prince Fielder before this, like if somehow his injury cleared up and he was able to come back, who's not going to give him a chance to?
Well, it's funny you say that because Joey Bautista is trying to make that comeback, and now all of a sudden, a guy who's that old but who can still hit, who might be able to still hit, could latch on to an NL team, get a minimum salary, and not have to play the field and maybe hit a few balls out the park.
I mean, you're talking about an extra 15 players now can hit the ball.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I think it's great. I hope it sticks. It sounds like it's a rule that will probably come in this year and probably stay for the long haul. Pitchers shouldn't be hitting. I mean, there's a few out there that can kind of rope, but like for the most part.
Willis, you remember that?
Yeah, I know Dontrelle Willis. I know Madison Bumgarner can hit it too, but like, let's be honest. Like most of the time, like you said earlier, it's an automatic out. Those pitchers are not really concerned with getting hits especially not during the regular season. They're typically just trying to like not get themselves hurt and move on to the next one.
What are we going to do without the double switch?
I still don't understand a double switch. If you can explain it to me, then go ahead. But I don't understand it. It won't have to happen. That's what we'll do without it. We won't have to deal with it.
Actually, but I won't try to explain it right now.
Next up is the NFL. We've got a couple of things to hit. A couple of players on each of our teams did some things over the last week that are interesting. But first up, the most interesting thing is that the NFL has proposed changes to the Rooney Rule. Now, the Rooney Rule requires that you interview African-American head coaches or coaches of color for your head coaching positions, whatever it may be. Their new plan, which I think is kind of bullshit, gives compensatory draft picks to the team that loses a coach and also gives the team that hires a coach the opportunity to move up 6 to 10 draft spots if they do so. Thoughts?
I don't even know where to go with this one. I mean, it's hard. I mean, you want to see more minorities hired, and you know, it's almost. I want to say 100% of owners are old white men.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, I can't think of anyone that isn't.
Khan, the owner of the Jaguars, isn't, but like, yes, you're spot on that it's mostly old white men.
And it's just weird, you know. You have the problem with black quarterbacks. You have very minimal black head coaches, Hispanic, minorities just don't seem to get the glory positions. Yeah. And I understand wanting them to get those positions and have the opportunities to do it. But to give a team who it's also going to be a negative for teams that have had a long-term head coach.
That's a good point.
So if you're the Patriots, you've had Belichick for 20 plus years, and somehow they are let's say they're the third pick of the draft because they had a bad year. And then this team hires a black head coach, and now they move up whatever the amount of picks is, and they jump in front of them one pick.
You hire.
It's not until the third round, but still, like.
But think about this. Think about this. You're the first pick of the. Say you're the first pick of the third round, and I don't know. This isn't fully explained, but say you're the first pick of the third round, and in that season you hired a black head coach or a head coach and a general manager of color. You can move up 16 spots. So instead of having the first pick of the third round, now all of a sudden you're on the early, middle early side of the second round. This to me is this is perfect NFL. It's a decision that gets people talking about it. It's good in the sense of it helps a team improve. It doesn't, however, fix the problem of the culture of hiring coaches in the NFL.
Yep.
in researching this, I went back over the last 2-3 years. Okay. In the last 2 years, there's been 12 new head coaches. 2 of them have been people of color. In the last 3 years, 17 coaches, 2 people of color.
So when you say new head coaches, it doesn't mean like Ron Rivera.
I'm talking about teams that turned over their head coaching position.
Okay, so like, and so where Ron Rivera counts as one of those, even though he already had a position, he went from Kansas to the Redskins.
Yes.
So you didn't really gain any.
No. And actually, like, you think about Anthony Lynn.
Yep.
With the Chargers was the head coach for the Bills.
Yep.
So you didn't gain anyone. And like, this is a huge problem. And one of the things that first came to mind when I read this was like, well, the biggest problem is that we retread the same old white head coaches over and over again, right? Like, Mike McCarthy getting a job with the Cowboys. Now, he's a unique situation in that he's a really good coach, and I think it was just his time to leave the Packers. But like, now it's hire the 28-year-old, 30-year-old hot offensive coordinator. But here's my question. What's the best offense in the NFL right now?
Kansas City.
Why hasn't their offensive coordinator been hired yet? Eric Bieniemy. Just wondering. Just wondering why the best offense in the league, that offensive coordinator hasn't got barely any interviews, if any.
So my question.
But
here's the thing. I think they need to there should be an extra rule that interviewing and hiring should not happen till after the Super Bowl. And the reason I say that is because not that Bieniemy wasn't going to say yes to an interview, but like, he shouldn't have to worry about his current job and go for an interview for that situation.
I'm not even sure that he's gotten many interview looks. But like, can you tell me who the head coach of the New York Giants is right now?
Yeah. Nope. Judge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is special teams coordinator? Game day film operator? The Giants have a brand new quarterback, a world-class running back. Bieniemy, I feel like that's a guy that probably could have worked really well for that team. It's just the NFL has an issue. They've had an issue for a long time. The Rooney Rule, when put into place, made a lot of sense.
Yep.
The Rooney Rule has been abused, in my opinion, by teams they interview somebody and never really take them seriously. And I'm sorry, the other, I guess Anthony Lynn was 4 years ago because it didn't come into my mouth. The only other person is Brian Flores of the Miami Dolphins. He's the other guy. So it's him and Ron Rivera.
Yes. And the only other minority is Mike Tomlin.
Right.
Those are the only 4 coaches. I think it's only 4 coaches.
Yes.
And again, now there's qualifications, but I agree with you. Bieniemy should be at least interviewed by how many positions open?
Let's just go back to the Giants. Like, when I was looking through the new head coaches, I was like, okay, if you want to hire the hot new coordinator, I get it. Cincinnati Bengals, you got Zach Taylor. Guy's never really done anything. I think he was offensive coordinator for like a hot second. Now he's a head coach, right?
I mean, the Packers did it.
Right. And again, I think what it says is if you take a head coach and you put him on a good team, in a good situation, they'll do all right. Zach Taylor comes into a bad situation, and the Bengals stink.
Yeah.
Matt LaFleur comes into the Packers with a Hall of Fame quarterback, who we're going to talk about in a little bit. You're going to do all right. Joe Judge, to me, this is just one of those things where, like, I would have never even thought about the Giants this year. I wouldn't have ever talked about Joe Judge. But now that we're talking about giving draft pick compensation because you hired a coach of color or a general manager of color, shows how disconnected the NFL and the owners are, and how all they really care about is how they look to a certain group of people. There are going to be a lot of people out there that say, like, that seems like a really good plan. You could move up in the draft pick if you hire a black coach. It's like, I'm not going to say the N-word anymore, so now I'm not racist. Like, it just is such a stupid thing to do. I really wish the NFL hadn't done this. And last night I jumped on Twitter and I saw a bunch of players just being like, I hope this isn't it. Because if this is it, we're not making any progress.
No,
they're just not.
They're not. No.
And unfortunately, this will probably go through, and draft pick compensation will happen instead of changing the culture where you say, hey, listen, as an organization, we are going to take seriously coaches of color just as seriously as we're going to take some white coordinator who's done literally nothing in their career, but we think they might be the next big thing. Like, again, kudos to Matt LaFleur, kudos to Sean McVay, kind of, because it worked out well early, but hasn't really worked out. Like, kudos to these guys, but again, it's not like all these coaches that are young and doing all this are having a whole bunch of success.
Right.
You know, I mean, the Browns. Who's the Browns coach right now?
Is it Freddie Kitchen still?
No, they fired him, and now they got Kevin Stefanski or whatever from the Vikings. Just another white coordinator who they wanted to. They could have hired last year, didn't. Hired Kitchens, fired him. Now they got him. The NFL they just need to do better. They need to do better.
Yeah,
I mean, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, you look at the NBA. I think you got a good mix of head coaches, and same thing in MLB. You have a lot of diversity, and again, I think NFL. So there's a lot of diversity.
Yep.
And you have the NBA and Major League Baseball have a lot of diversity as players. So there's a better opportunity for more minorities to have a chance. And I guess
the NFL is 70% African American.
But what I'm saying is, like, there's more. You have Hispanic in Major League Baseball, so you have the Coras and.
I get it. You're making a valid point. 70% of the players in the NFL are African American.
Yes.
And there are 4 head coaches of color. That's where we are at in this world. And it is super disappointing that the NFL's answer to this is, let's give draft pick compensation. For all of the reasons that it's wrong, plus the things that you said about how a team like the Patriots, who's had the same head coach for 20 years, they're going to get penalized for just having the same coach.
Yep.
And again,
now let's be honest. Like, how often does a coach stay around for 20 years?
Well, but that's true. But I think
10, 12 years. That's still the same thing. Because,
well, it's crazy you said that, because when I was looking up all of this stuff, I came across an article that was like the longest tenured head coaches. And I was like, oh, let me scroll down to the bottom, because that's where the Bills are, because they've only had the head coach for 4 years. He's number 10 on the list. He's in the middle. Because that's how much turnover is in the NFL. There's literally no patience, and you're always trying to find the next hot thing, right? Or, somebody becomes available and you're like, I got to go grab that guy. Like, it's just retreads, or you're trying to find that new hot coordinator.
The retread trend is amazing.
Well, and thankfully it seems like it's dying out a little bit, because it's now become the hot coordinator thing. Like, that's the thing now. But that was the first thing I thought about too, was like, oh, they just went and hired like the same old white coach that's done this like for 4 different programs and hasn't had any success.
Oh, we'll look forward to seeing maybe Steve Spurrier or Nick Saban back.
Okay. Aaron Rodgers, last week, interviewed. Finally spoke on the fact that Jordan Love was drafted in the first round. Give me your thoughts. I mean, I've got some feelings, but this is your program. This is your team. This is your squad. What do you got?
I mean, I was getting worried there. He hadn't said anything for a couple weeks now.
Yeah.
I'm like, is he just harboring it? Is he going to come out and just badmouth the Packers? And, I thought what he said was very diplomatic.
Yeah.
He didn't say I'm pissed off, but you could tell he was irritated. Like, he didn't say like fuck the Packers. Like,
no.
Some quarterbacks have said that when they're like, they're trying to replace me, screw them. This is, he was like, my thought process was, I'm going to retire a Packer. I'm going to finish my career there. He wanted to do that.
Yeah.
And the Packers have made it a possibility by drafting Love, trading up for Love to draft him, that he is not going to be that. And he's like, well, then that's so be it. Like and I think that makes sense. Like he's going to go out there, he's going to try and win every game he can win, and he's going to either say he's either going to do it or he's not. And I actually like that he didn't trash him. I love that he did say, well, I would have liked, another target because that's what they needed. They do need a target still because I'm not sold on Funchess. I'm sorry.
They need another wide receiver. They got 3 running backs though.
Yeah, we do. So, I think they're going to, we've talked about this. They're going to do some crazy shit. I think they're going to do wide receivers in the slot. They're going to do, I'm not wide receiver. They're going to do running backs in the slot. They're going to line Sternberger and Lewis up in the slot. And I think they're going to do some interesting things.
Yeah.
But I think what it says with drafting Dillon is they're taking the ball out of Rodgers' hands as much as possible. And they're going to try and win games with defense and running.
Well, so
they're going to try in San Francisco. They're going to try in Tennessee. Yeah. And when they need Rodgers to pull it out, they hope that he can still do it.
I want to ask you a hypothetical that is
please do
an absolutely ridiculous question to ask. But it was the first thing I thought of when I read kind of the review of his interview. Is there any world in which the Packers draft Jordan Love in the first round, moving up to draft him, if they hadn't done it? If they hadn't drafted Aaron Rodgers however many years ago in the first round and let him sit for 5-6 years under Brett Favre, is there any way? Or do they just go out and give him the weapons that he needs?
So you're saying
would they have made this move
if it didn't work out so well with Rodgers?
Right.
No, absolutely not.
Okay, that's all I wanted to hear because I'm guessing Jordan Love doesn't become a good quarterback. Because most quarterbacks don't become good quarterbacks, right?
Yeah,
my guess is that this is something that in 6 years they don't have Aaron Rodgers and they don't have Jordan Love. Like, and that's not saying anything bad about Jordan Love. It's just the reality is that you're asking 2 people who are insanely competitive to basically just one of them's got to just keep doing what he's doing, keep producing, and the other one's got to just sit there and wait. And like, yes, it worked out well with Favre and Rodgers. To me, that feels like a once in a lifetime situation.
Well, but no, you say that twice in a lifetime because we watched the Montana to Steve Young switch.
Sure. Okay. So twice in our lifetime it's happened.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like it's possible. I think if we didn't see it with that, there's no way they would have did that. They would have said
twice in our lifetime, 4 Hall of Famer quarterbacks have been paired up with each other and made it work. Now, the other part of this is I can't help thinking, and I don't want to get you all worked up, but like the Packers blew this, man. They blew it. If you were willing to trade up to get Jordan Love, trade up even farther and get a wide receiver. Like, and you already know this, and I don't think that I gave it my proper like aggressiveness the first time around, but like it's such a cop out to me. Like, oh, we want to think about the future. Cool story, bro. You could also sign a quarterback. You could also draft another quarterback. The greatest quarterback in the world could come out 3 years from now, and you could get that person. Like Aaron Rodgers could get injured next year, and you could get the number 1 pick and draft Trevor Lawrence. You mean to tell me that if Aaron Rodgers gets injured next year and they have the number 1 pick in the draft, they're not going to take Trevor Lawrence? Like it's just, I get the looking toward the future.
I mean, you had the perfect example is Arizona.
Right.
They drafted Rosen. They were like, oh, cool. We got our rookie quarterback. Oh, Kyler Murray's there. We have to take him.
Right.
And Lawrence is there. Of course you're taking him over Jordan Love.
Right. And again.
You flip them. But, I mean, again, Boyle could beat him out for the backup. And
yeah, that's not going to happen, D. At the end of the day, it is what it is. It's already happened. We can argue it to death. It just feels like Aaron Rodgers is probably sitting around thinking, okay, I get it. I'm not going to be around forever, but do you want to win world championships or do you want to have a 10-6 season 5 seasons from now?
Right.
Like to me, and again, especially with the Packers, their fans aren't going anywhere. Like they're going to be there. they're going to show up even when the team has a bad year. You don't need to like do this thing for them. You don't need to.
It's fucked up.
Speaking of fucked up, Ed Oliver, I think he was kind of fucked up last night.
Nice.
Yeah, pulled over, beer in hand, gun in the car.
Nice.
Intoxicated.
Pulling a trailer.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing.
Four-wheeler.
I've read a lot on this because I want to be as well versed in this as possible. This is a dumb move. Just a really bad decision on his part.
Well,
Now, wasn't doing any, like, he was doing a lot of things wrong. He wasn't. Yeah, he just fucked up. I want to try and, like, make this all right, but, like, you're a second-year blossoming stud in the NFL, like,
on a team that is gonna win the AFC East.
well, we already know that, but like you're going to be a focal point of their defense. And I get that life is tough right now, but why are you hopping in the car at night, hitching a trailer to your car, your truck, and driving down the highway intoxicated with beers, and on top of it, picking up a gun charge because you have the gun in the car while intoxicated? It's just an awful move. And you know the worst thing? Obviously, like, the first thing I thought was like, well, that was stupid. You could have, like, hurt somebody. The second thing I thought of was like, here's a guy who the Bills were probably like, just going to let him go wild this year. Just going to let him loose. Just, hey, Ed, have at it. Because last year we started to see signs of it. He was showing out a little bit. They got rid of Jordan Phillips. They needed him. And now we're talking about 4-game suspension. We're talking about fines, which, whatever. Like, fines or whatever.
Fines or whatever. Yep.
But you're going to miss this guy for a quarter of the season. Plus, he's probably not going to be in full shape when he comes back, just because that's not how it works. And to the Bills' credit, they went out and signed a bunch of depth on the defensive line. Yep. If those guys are playing well, he's going to fall in the depth chart.
Yep.
I mean, they're not gonna cut him, right? Like, but like,
I didn't mean like that. Like,
yeah, but he's going to have to work his way back. Like, this is a guy that was going to be a starter, and now come week 5, he might be looking at like 25 to 50% time, and that's just really shitty.
It is. I mean, but he's not the only one. Cody Latimer,
yeah,
the Washington Redskins, just, hey, let's go shoot some guns out in the air and just.
Yeah.
And you got DeAndre Baker.
Yeah.
Giants deciding, hey, armed robbery might be the way to go. Now, again, he's out on $200,000 bail, innocent to proven guilty, right? But I mean, these players, let's get them in we're about to talk about it. May 19th, yeah. Tuesday.
Yeah.
Can open. Get them in there. Get them back into football because they're getting bored.
Well, I think the reality is that, and I don't want to, like, yes, you're right. I don't want to fully agree to that because I feel like they're adults. They should be able to handle themselves.
They should be able to handle it.
But it's one of those things where I think we just got to, like, be conscious of the fact that, like, when folks are cooped up in their house for 2 months, chances are things could get a little weird. And thank God Ed Oliver didn't run anybody off the road. Thank God Lattimore didn't shoot anybody, was just shooting guns out of, and if you're committing armed robbery as an NFL player, don't you already make enough money? What are you robbing? What the hell are you doing? I mean, maybe he's just pissed off that Joe Judge is going to be his head coach this year. That's something I can think of. But I am, to your point, again, I'm really excited that we're moving close to sports happening again. I think every time that something awful happens in our country or happens worldwide, sports, in my opinion, is one of those things that can help heal the country, heal the world. It's something that everybody, even those people that are kind of fair weather fans or only show up for certain events, can kind of appreciate. Like if the NBA playoffs start happening, if the NHL playoffs start happening, Major League Baseball kicks off, and the NFL season is on the horizon. I know we talked about this in a couple episodes.
Can you imagine the ratings?
Right, well, and like yes, I can. They're going to be crazy, but just like the fact that like families can sit down and like turn on one night Stanley Cup playoffs, one night the NBA playoffs, one night their favorite baseball team, the next night they're talking preseason NFL football. Like it's just going to be one of those moments where like all of these sports are going to come together, and they're all going to be fighting for airtime. But the reality is, I think a lot of people are going to be able to say like, you know what, let's sit back, let's watch some sports, and let's try to feel a little bit like we're moving in the right direction again.
No, I agree with that. I mean, I think Jacob has been reading a lot of books recently. Read it's like there's 8 athletes who had a hard time growing up but made it, and it was like Tim Howard. It was I don't believe it was LeBron James, but he's in the driveway now doing a fadeaway. LeBron James,
right?
And then he did this one move, and he's like, "I'm just like James Harden." I'm like, "What? You traveled 17 steps?" But but like he's starting to get into it, and it's sad that I can't really get him to watch it because there's nothing for him to watch. I want him to, obviously I don't want him to watch some of the crazy stuff of the NBA because NBA is not, what's going to help you play high school basketball. But I look forward to college basketball being on and being able to really talk to him about sports while we play. I'd love to get into soccer with him a little bit. He hasn't shown as much enthusiasm about soccer. He was dribbling the ball the other day, but I just think it's time to, he's finally starting to be like, I want to watch sports.
Yeah, and again, it's just kind of, I think if it all works out well, and I'm hoping it does, it'll be where all of these sports kind of come together in a short period of time where literally every night you can sit down and watch them. And again, there might not be that many fans in the stands. I know the NBA is talking about trying to figure out how to put 25% of the fans in the stadiums. NHL obviously is going to try their best to get people in the stands. NFL is planning on having 60, 70,000 people in the stands, so who knows?
It shouldn't be hard for these sports to get 25,000 or not 25,000.
No.
It's like you have so many seats, like you can only eat in these, get beers from this concession stands, and it's just blocked off, and you have to enter at this entrance. I don't think it's that hard to pull off. It's just planning those logistics that they're going to have to figure out.
Right. And planning those logistics in a very short amount of time, right? Like that's the challenge, is that this is all happening incredibly quickly. And because the players want to get back, the fans wanted to get back, obviously the owners want to get back because it's money that they're losing, like in the league itself too. Like all of these people want it to come back. The reality is they're having to make these decisions in a very short amount of time. But to your point, the NFL opening up facilities is great. The NBA opening facilities is great. The NHL not doing anything is not great. MLB is coming back. Like, again, I just keep thinking about the fact that, like, maybe in a month and a half, we could start to see some sports. I mean, again, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, like, you can watch soccer again. Like, it's happening over in Germany. I know the Premier League's coming back soon. It is a little weird watching sports with no fans because you can hear every word, you can hear coaches yelling, you can hear players talking. It does feel a little bit like a training session, but you know what? Those players are going to show up and they're going to go 100%.
But isn't that kind of cool though now? It's like you hear what the coaches are saying to the players, and you hear what the players are saying on the field. I think that's kind of adding a new wrinkle that I think people will like.
Yeah.
Because you like NFL's trying to do it. They put the microphones on the field. They put them on players. Like you're getting more of a real experience because you can actually hear them. And I think
what's going to be interesting, and I was thinking about that because when you're watching a soccer game, most of the time the people that are doing the announcing are up high, and so when a goal is scored and they scream, like nobody's going to hear that, right? Yeah. It's going to be interesting. Like, are NBA announcers going to be down courtside? And if somebody hits a big three later, they're going to be like, "Oh my God!" And like, are the players going to be like, like, it's going to be like a weird situation like that. And the NBA came to mind because that's the one sport where those announcers are right there on the court. Yeah. And I wonder if they'll pull them back and maybe put them up in like a suite, just because it's going to be really weird if they're like losing their mind and no one else is losing their mind. Though, like I said, the NBA seems to be trying to figure out a way to have a handful of fans in the stands for each game.
I look forward to it. I look forward to us having a little bit more. Not that there's not a lot to talk about, but I can't wait to break down NBA matchups in the playoffs.
Come on, man. Come on.
I can't wait. Get a little bracket going.
Yeah, it's just going to be
over-unders in the NFL. Like, it's going to be awesome, and I think it's going to be great.
I feel you. Yeah. I feel you. Well, listen, we took a week off. We needed a break.
Yeah.
Had a couple of beers. You were drinking Fireball the last time we were on screen.
Yeah.
It gets a little weird, but we're back. We're better than ever. We're coming for you. Beers Up Sports Talk. Any last thoughts for us, D?
Hit that iTunes.
Hit that iTunes.
Don't even listen if you don't want to. Just download it.
Give us that 5-star rating. Stop playing.
5-star rating. Get on Facebook. Get on IG. I don't care. We're going to start posting more on Twitter. I want to try and start posting a little bit more. Just pictures and random stuff to just get you guys more into it, and let's make this happen.
Yeah, we're coming for you, y'all.
Hey, let's put Western Mass on the map, right?
Yeah, man. All right, Beers Up Sports Talk, episode 13 in the books. We'll see y'all later.
Let's go.